ADC draws the spotlight for 12.16 as there are 5 different champions being changed for the role. We'll be covering all that and much more as we update the solo queue tier list thanks to the help of our challenger players and analyzing the most recent data. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. The new skins set to drop this patch will include Stride Commander Camille, Cyber Halo Janna, Strike Paladin Lucian, and Armored Titan Nasus. The prestige skin will be going to Cyber Halo Janna. We saw buffs in 12.15 to melee supports like Thresh and Leona, and Riot's going one step further for 12.16. Many melee supports will be indirectly buffed as Even Shroud's damage amp is going from 9 to 10%. The duration on the damage amp is increased as well from 4 to 5 seconds. Even prior to these buffs, Even Shroud has outperformed Locket on champions like Leona, Maokai, Rel, Amumu, Thresh, and Alistar, so if you main any of those champions, look to be building the item in 12.16. Irelia was buffed a few patches back, and Riot's giving her a sprinkle of extra power for 12.16 as well. Armor per level is going from 4.2 to 4.7. Base magic resist will be increased from 28 to 30. Very minor buffs overall, and they definitely won't be enough to push Irelia up the tier list as she will remain in our A tier. It's been a while since we've seen Jace in the solo queue meta, so he's got a few buffs for 12.16. Base armor is going from 22 to 24. Melee Q bonus AD ratio is up from 120 to 130%. Our damage bonus AD ratio is increased from 25 to 30%. Not really the kind of buffs you'd be hoping for as a Jace player. Jace needs to exert pressure throughout the early game to be effective, so he'd much rather have some base stat buffs instead of scaling. They're not completely useless buffs though, and will give Jace a small power boost as we will now be moving him from C into B tier. Malphite has been hit with many indirect nerfs recently, so Riot has a few buffs to help him out. Passive cooldown drops from 10 scaling to 6 seconds to 8 scaling to 6 seconds. Pretty massive buff for Malphite's laning power. W cooldown is buffed as well, going from 12 seconds at all ranks to 12 seconds scaling to 10 seconds. This change makes it so that Malphite wins more against champions he already stomps. A W max works great into physical damage top laners and will become even better now. The passive change is amazing and will help Malphite in all matchups, however the W buff is either worthless or OP depending on the matchup. All in all, Malphite becomes a godlike counter pick for 12.16, but his blind pickability remains lackluster, so he finds a spot in our A tier. For the top lane tier list, the cream of the crop stays intact, with Aatrox, Darius, and Shen as the OP picks. With Kennen's recent buffs, a bunch of pro players have been picking him up and running Night Harvester instead of Rocket Belt. Harvester is actually winning about 2% more in solo queue, which isn't much of a surprise. Kennen is so heavily reliant on his ultimate to be impactful, so with Harvester providing added haste, you can be a more reliable threat in the mid to late game. Rumbletop has also been seeing better results as of recent and is running the same build as Kennen. Both champs have good bully potential in a lot of matchups too, so with potions nerfed, it's a factor for their recent success. Best low elo top laners of the patch are Garen, Mordekaiser, and Yorick. Shen, Aatrox, and Darius are high on the ban list. These nerfs have been a long time coming as Diana's base damage on her passive will be nerfed for 12.16. Diana's passive damage is being hit at the later ranks as it's down from 250 to 220. AP ratio on passive is up from 50 to 55%. EAP ratio is going up from 45 to 50% to compensate, but this buff won't outweigh the passive nerf. Tank Diana is obviously hit the hardest by these changes, but full AP Diana will feel the effects as well. As a result of the changes, we will be moving Diana out of OP tier and into S. Poppy has seen a considerable amount of priority in the pro scene, so her clear will be slowed down moving forward. Q monster cap is going from 50 scaling to 170 to 30 scaling to 150. Poppy has been a solid A tier solo queue jungler as of recent, and that will not change due to these nerfs. With only 2 jungle changes this patch, expect the meta to shape out very similar to 12.15. Nunu, Mastery, and Fiddlesticks are who our analysts have rated as the most optimal solo queue picks. Udyr mini rework is set to drop this patch, but we won't have our first true accurate rating until the mid-patch tier list, so take his A tier rating with a grain of salt. Not only has Zed mid become stronger due to his recent buffs, but Zed jungle has seen a nice spike in power as well, so we'll be adjusting him into A tier. You could even argue the energy buff to Zed E helps jungle Zed more than it does mid lane due to him wanting to spam abilities off cooldown more. Top 3 low elo junglers are Amumu, Master Yi, and Shyvana. Fiddle, Master Yi, and Kayn are 3 of the more optimal jungle bans. Everyone's absolute favorite mid lane mage being Zoe is buffed for 12.16. W minion drop rate is going from 1 every 12 to 1 every 10 minions, so Zoe can now outplay you with her excellent skill expression more often. E base damage is up by 10 at all ranks, while the AP ratio is increased from 40 to 45%. All things considered, these aren't game-changing buffs and will only solidify Zoe as a good A-tier solo queue mid. Riot's taking a foot off the gas in regards to mid lane changes to this patch, so let's jump right into the tier list. Zoe being the only mid buffed means our OP tier is the same as last patch, with Zed, Victor, Sylas, and Vex leading the charge. Trist is more commonly played in the bot lane, but mid lane Tristana will be liking these buffs as well. Q attack speed is increased by 15% at all ranks, which is actually pretty nuts. A dagger provides 12% attack speed and costs 300 gold, so with this buff you're getting 375 gold worth of stats for free. Mid Trist likes to be extremely aggressive early on, so this change will be really great for early skirmishes. Low-key, Trist mid may actually be the biggest winner of 12.16, as we will be moving her from A into S tier. To climb low elo the fastest from mid lane, look into maining Swain, Malzahar, or Annie. Sylas, Zed, or Vex are 3 of the best mid lane bans. Let's head down to the bot lane where the meat of the changes are for 12.16. The exact buffs for Tristana see her Q attack speed going from 50 scaling to 110% to 65 scaling to 125%. Not only these buffs, but the fact more aggro supports have been buffed in recent patches like Leona and Thresh gives Trist more solo queue priority. In order to maximize what Tristana's kit can offer, you don't really want to be pairing her up with enchanters, so more aggro supports coming back in meta is great. We definitely see mid lane Trist benefiting more from these buffs, but bot lane Trist will be moving up as well, going from B into A tier. Riot has a few minor buffs lined up for Kai'Sa, with her passive on hit damage increased more heavily at the later ranks. Passive additional damage per stack is going from 1 scaling to 8 to 1 scaling to 12. AP builds are pretty obsolete right now, but Q AP ratio is going from 25 to 30%, while R AP ratio is being increased from 90 to 120%. The AP buffs don't mean a whole lot unless you're building Nashers, but the passive buffs will add to extended fight power. Kai'Sa will be following suit with Tristana and moving up into A tier. Caitlyn's mid-game spike will become stronger this patch, as her passive AD ratio is going up by 10% at level 13. R damage will now deal up to 25% bonus damage based on crit chance. Caitlyn has slowly been buffed up by Riot over the past couple of months now, and prior to these buffs had found herself in a solid A tier spot. As a result of these buffs, we believe they will be what it takes to push Caitlyn that extra bit further and into our S tier for 12.16. Yet another round of Zeri nerfs as she continues to be highly prioritized in pro play. WAP ratio is going from 60 to 40%. QAD ratio drops by 5% at all ranks. Due to the nerfs in previous patches, Zeri has fallen off quite hard for solo queue, and these nerfs will only bring more pain. Many better ADC options right now, as Zeri is placed in our C tier. After only a few patches of dominating the bot lane meta, Riot has decided it's time for a Draven nerf. Q base damage drops from 45 scaling to 65 to 40 scaling to 60. Not the end of the world, but a dent in Draven's early bully power. Nerf will lead to Sivir standing out as the most broken bot lane pick, so Draven drops from OP into S tier. For the ADC tier list, Seraphine and Sivir are the OP picks of the patch. Considering Sivir is the highest win rate and play rate ADC right now, no 12.16 nerfs were pretty shocking, so continue to abuse her while you can. Riot's actually done a pretty decent job at balancing the ADCs to similar power levels as of recent. There are many good S and A tier picks now, as champs like Varus, Tristana, Kai'Sa, and Caitlyn, who were all relatively weak in previous patches, have made the jump up. Veigar, MF, and Seraphine are 3 of the best bot lane carries for low elo. Neela, Sivir, and Draven are a few of the more optimal bot lane bans. Just 2 champions being changed for support this patch, and the first up is Zyra. Zyra's E post-cast lockout duration is being lowered from 0.15 scaling to 0.4 seconds to 0.15 seconds. Quite a nice quality of life buff to Zyra, as she will now be a little more slippery and not as easy to take down. Zyra is actually in a great spot for solo queue due to the recent sustained nerfs, so if you want to play a carry support, Zyra is an amazing S tier option. And lastly, a couple of Yuumi nerfs to brighten everyone's day. E movement speed is going from 6% per 100 AP to 2% per 100 AP. E cooldown drops as well, going from 12 scaling to 8 seconds to 12 scaling to 10 seconds. This one hits Yuumi's mid to late game pretty substantially and will lead to her dropping into B tier for 12.16. I guess Riot forgot that Amumu is one of the best Even Shroud users. Amumu has been put in our OP tier for a few patches, and the Even Shroud buffs put him on another level above everyone else. Pyke and Taric dropping down to S is simply a byproduct of Amumu being a cut above them now. Alistar, Leona, and Thresh have all received direct buffs in previous patches, and these Even Shroud buffs will give them an extra boost as well. As more of these engaged supports come back into meta, it gives great value to Janna. Janna has held one of the highest win rates for any support the past few patches, and we may see it go up even further if Leona and Alistar keep being played more. Top 3 low elo supports are Amumu, Brand, and Zyra. Renata Glask, Pyke, and Amumu are some of the best value support bans. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into Elo Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So there's your complete update on the solo queue tier list for 12.16. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and we'll catch you in the next one.